So I just finished reading the book When the Body Says No by Gabor Mate, and it was life-changing. It was incredible, which is how all the books you read should be. Yeah, there are some books to read for fun, but this one specifically dove into a topic that I've needed help with and didn't realize I needed help with. You know, you don't know what you don't know. He's talking about the link in this book. He's talking about the link between repressing negative emotions and disease in general, mostly autoimmune diseases, but diseases like different kinds of cancers, and ALS and IBS and colitis and MS and tons of different diseases. That there are tons of studies linking the repression of anger specifically, and the lack of nurturing guidance as children being key markers for these, personalities that get these diseases. Anyway, that's most of the book. What I loved about this was that he gave direction as far as how to get away from it. That can seem like a daunting task, like, well, I repress my emotions, but how do I not repress my emotions? How do I deal with this stuff? And he goes through something called, he writes a chapter at the very end called the 7 A's. And the first one is acceptance. And I just want to touch on these briefly because they're so important. He writes, acceptance also implies a compassionate relationship with oneself. It means discarding the double standard that as we have seen too often characterizes our relationship with this world. Acceptance that you have anger, acceptance that you have negative emotions, that you have them and that you need to express them in a mature, real way to be able to deal with them. And that's a big piece. I've known that I've been angry for a long, long time. But in learning that, the tendency would be to repress it so that I can be more accepted from people. And that's not the solution. He goes into the second one, which was awareness. And he's saying all those seeking to heal or to remain healthy need to reclaim the lost capacity for emotional truth recognition, which is wonderfully illustrated. And he goes into this talking about Oliver Sacks, who talked about, basically the awareness of these emotions when they come up in us, and what they feel like, and what they're doing, and what their purpose is. And awareness is something that I've struggled with for a long time, and am only recently learning that there's some way that I can become more aware of my emotions as they rise, and not just give into anxiety of rage and fear and different kinds of anxieties and flight. The third thing he talks about is anger. And this is the important one for me because he talks about the difference between anger and rage. And as I think about it, I've felt anger occasionally, true, and I've been able to truly express anger in a mature way where you're calm and you're empowered and you are setting boundaries for yourself in a way that's strong and a mature expression of anger. The yelling, the shouting, the rage is a childish expression, a fit, if you will, of an inability to maturely express the real feelings and really feel the anger inside yourself. So you express that rage to get that feeling out, so that you don't have to feel it. It's an insulation against real emotional connection with your anger. And just like that, you can go the other direction and repress that and push that anxiety and that emotion down into your body so that, again, you don't have to truly feel and express the emotion of anger and the feeling of anger. Anger is when when maturely expressed, is extremely powerful, but doesn't cross other people's boundaries. Anger sets boundaries for us. It helps us to establish our power, our own power in ourselves, and to become more confident. That was a great distinction that he took from a guy that wrote a book about anger and studied anger, psychologist Habib Devanloo. Anyway, that was a really, really big piece for me, and just seeing that difference between rage and anger. Then he goes on to talk about autonomy, which has also been a big deal for me, and the setting of clear boundaries, and how the reason a lot of us don't have the ability to set clear boundaries for ourselves and make that distinction for ourselves is because we were never taught to do so. And the reason we weren't taught is because chances are our parents didn't know how to do it for themselves. And so we do what we know, we do what we're taught, and then we continue in that for most of our life. And so if you're unable to create those real boundaries, then you can't develop who you are as a person from inside yourself. You always take it from, you do what your dad wants you to do as a career, or you do what your mom wanted you to do as a career, or you live your life the way you think your parents would want to, so that again they accept you. And he finishes off the autonomy section by saying, autonomy then is the development of that internal center of control. And it really is which I've been finding, where I'm doing what I'm doing because I want to do it, and I feel like it's the right thing for me to do. Not because you like it, not because it fits with your life, not because it fits with your perspective, but because I choose to do it. It has meaning because I choose to do it. Not the other way around. I do it because it has meaning. No, I choose to do it, and that gives it meaning to me and to you and to everyone else out there. Very, very important. The next thing was the section on attachment. Attachment is our connection with the world. In the earliest attachment relationships, we gain or lose the ability to stay open, self-nurturing, and healthy. In those early attachment bonds, we learned to experience anger or to fear it and repress it. There we developed our sense of autonomy, or suffered its atrophy. So incredible. Just this idea of attachment to the world around, but a true attachment, not a fake attachment, not under false pretenses, not faking it to appear better to other people, to be accepted, to fit in with the crowd. Real attachment with real people is where we'll find the ability to express ourselves and express emotions that aren't necessarily what we want to be expressing all the time. Sixth was assertion. He says, beyond acceptance and awareness, beyond the experience of anger and the unfolding of autonomy, along with the celebration of our capacity for attachment and the conscious search for contact, comes assertion. It is the declaration to ourselves and to the world that we are, and that we are who we are. And I love that, because for so long I've been afraid to express who I am as a person, what I value, what I hold dear, my vulnerability as a person, my weaknesses. I don't want to show weakness, because if I show vulnerability, it's weakness. When in fact the opposite is true. Vulnerability is one of the truest strengths a person can have, true vulnerability. And asserting that to the world, it gets back to what we learned in the Four Agreements and other books like that, where you don't take anything personally. Because if you take it personally, then you're never going to assert yourself, because every time you put yourself out there and somebody spits on it, you're going to take it back, and you're going to hide it, and you're going to repress it. And then the last one was affirmation. He said, when we affirm, we make a positive statement, we move towards something of value. There are two basic values that can assist us to heal and to remain whole if we honor them. The first value is our own creative self. For many years after, and he talks about how he, his own creative self, he had to find what he wanted to create separate from his work. And he said the second great affirmation is of the universe itself, our connection with all that is. The assumption that we are cut off alone and without contact is toxic. But no matter how cruelly and how consistently life has shown us this dark shadow, it is no more than a bitter illusion. It forms part of the pathological biology of belief. Anyway, and then he finishes up the book really, really well. He talks about Nasrudin searching outside for his keys when his keys were lost inside his house, and he says Nasrudin, fool and sage, exists in all of us. And it was just an incredible way to end the book, where he wasn't just saying, okay, here's the link to When the Body Says No. Extremely good book. He wasn't just saying, okay, here's the link to cancer and IBS and all these other problems, figure it out for yourself. He did say that, and he very clearly demonstrated that there is quite a correlative link to those diseases through a certain personality type of repressing emotions. But then he went ahead and he offered what he is seeing, and I'm sure there's more to it than that, but what he knew and what he saw as the solution to that problem. And I love that. So many times there are books written and there are self-help things said that, people are like, here's the problem, here are my conclusions about this problem, but there's never an actual solution presented. Anyway, I really love that. Check this book out, definitely worth reading, and be ready to explore who you are as a person and look inside. That's the only way this book's actually going to help you. So much to learn. I'm sure I'll read it again. Anyway, go ahead and check it out. Definitely worth it. It's called When the Body Says No. It's by Gabor Mate.